is TV. Hi, and welcome to LIGHTBOB TV. Today is Wednesday. We are episode 7. How the best circadian fixtures are built. Um, this was a whole new uh, story for me because I never really took the time to look. And most of the circadian fixtures that I saw in the past were made in plastic. They were made portable. They were so lighting um, is one of the most exciting revolution that we have in our industry right now. And yesterday I was talking to a manufacturer, and they said, yes, our fixtures are built with the are built to be circadian. And for me, I know that this is a word we're gonna use more and more, and we're gonna hear. And of course, you want to connect the light with the human biology. So all of this start to make sense now, and it's also making sense that manufacturers are adopting it because they know that they're going to have the main result. So they know that things are changing, things are evolving, people are asking for more and more, and they want to have stability, they want to have reliability, and they want to make sure that when they buy a product, it's not just a product that they're going to toss away in a few months. It becomes part of their lifestyle, it becomes part of the way that they work every day. So that's why when I designed this series, I kept the same pattern as my Lightbulb TV show, because I know that anything that we're gonna touch, or anything that we're gonna any subjects that we're gonna look at, it's gonna have the same constraint. We start with the source, then we have the fixture, the manufacturer, the design, and the ecosystem around it. So, and then for this particular show, we're gonna last 3 weeks, so that's gonna be 15 episodes. And from there, as you see, we've been going on top. We've been looking at basic concept. Yesterday, we talked about, like how does the fixtures now, the term that we learned at the beginning of the TV show, and that are also in my book. And you'll see some of those icons appear once in a while. I'm getting fancy here. So yeah, so this is my book right there, and this is my new website. So that's pretty cool. So, and the previous episode I can put there too. So what what I'm doing is that I'm just reinforcing the basic knowledge. So yesterday what we were saying is that having general diffuse source and having directional, and knowing how that affect the architecture or the environment, interior or exterior, uh, it becomes very clear that it's easy to communicate with a professional, or with an electrician, or with a manufacturers, or anybody. When you say, I want to have some directional that are not glary, that we want to install, let's say 3 feet from the wall, they already know more than anybody else tells them, because now, somebody come in with all kinds of technical lingo. I want a 6-inch can with the Alzac baffle with a white trim. That for you is something that is, if you're a client, you don't really care about that. What you want is, you want to make sure that the light touch the wall. Now, what you should have said is, I want a 6-inch adjustable fixtures that I don't see the source, right? That is directional to the wall. That could be a easier way to say it. But no matter what, you're starting the dialogue way higher, because now you know the basic. So you know that we have general, diffuse, and we have directional. And what it does for us in lighting is that, especially in this type of lighting, is that now we know that if we use general diffuse at eye level for the night vision, we're with a warm color, our sensor that are in our eyes are getting some data, and it starts to prepare us to go to sleep. And if we have the same fixtures during the day that are in a bluish and a cold, then we know that this is go time, this is work time. So again, these little detail are very important, because you'll see as we progress in the episode, we're adding on to that, and we're adding more and more data. And I'm not going to be I'm not going to go scientific, because this is not my job. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to give you enough data that you're going to be able to make an aware decision and have an aware conversation with anybody that you talk to that knows about lighting, and that will help you to build your house. And all of that needs to be taken into account. And again, like, this is the basic of the basic. And even that basic, when I talk to some people, they don't even know the basic. They say, oh yeah, it's the lighting. I remember talking to some people, they said, oh yeah, it's lighting on the floor. Oh yeah. The answer I get every day is very, very funny, because you see that people have bits and pieces. And if you follow this program, this show, you'll find out that you'll have way more detail and way more data that you can apply. Because even if I tell you the frequency in nanometer that your eyes cells respond to, it doesn't give you anything. But if I tell you that with a general diffuse source in your room, and that you can change from cool to warm and warm to cool, that will help you to generate some data, so that your body is fed with the right data at the right time, and then you apply it in your life, your body is going to go way better. That's a fact. So it's just a matter of, and putting more density around that data, so when you apply it for yourself, it works faster, it works better. It's not a chore. You don't feel like there's not enough light. You don't feel like, tired in the middle of the day, or you don't feel all awake before you go to bed. So all of this, and that's why today we're talking about fixtures. All of this depends on one thing. It depends on, well, actually, it depends on many things, but one of the critical things is the fixtures that are going to deliver the light, right? And as we talked about uh, the fixtures, we can't not talk about the manufacturers, because the manufacturers are the one that are fabricating the fixtures. So as we go inside the manufacturing process during this show, we'll learn that, their job is very, very important. And also that without their job, without them doing their job correctly, we don't have any result. We don't have nothing. So this is not about a critic to manufacturer, but we want to understand what makes the performance of a fixtures, right? What makes a certain type of fixture better than others? And when we talk to people, our electrician, or we talk to our architect, or we talk to a distributor, what are we talking about? Like, what's important for us? So one thing I want to start with is that, although control is very important, because it has to help us to to modulate our curve, uh, circadian lighting is not only about control, right? Because you can have the best control lighting system and then have a fixtures that have a driver that is not working properly and flickers. So it's important to understand that it's the consistency of the system, of all the components that we put it in place. And when we design system, when I design a system, as an example, I'm not going to say we, I make sure that everything is consistent, everything is compatible, and everybody talks to everybody, meaning inside the electronics, right? And also that our fixtures that the manufacturer provide us with maintain over the years, it maintains the same spectrum, right? The same intensity and the same balance. Because any one of those go out of whack, well, guess what? Your color and your consistency start to shift. And the last thing you want is to have a flat line and everything the same, especially when you invest into a circadian system and you invest in a control system and you invest in time, and then the fixtures are default. So how do the best manufacturer achieve that? Like, what do they do, right? And again, we talked about this in our previous lecture, but for those that are joining us for that show, uh, what's the first element in the lighting fixtures? Well, it's the LED. So we want to make sure that the manufacturer has a very good LED provider, and because LED comes with different natural variation. Unlike the tungsten filament that was in an old incandescent bulb that was very stable, LED are made out of electronic component, and they are made out of chemicals, and sometimes they just have different mix. So what happened is that once they're all done, they go to a series of battery, a test of battery, a battery test. Yeah, like they all get tested. And I'm sorry, I'm French, but so they go to a series of tests, and then they are separated. And in our term, we call them binning because they're put in a little plastic bin or big plastic bin. And those that are, you know, 80%, 70%, 90%, 100%. And when I say percent, it's not the quality of the LED, is the quality of the color rendering. And then depending on what their color their binning is, the different color shift, or what they're missing or having a little bit too much, or they're going to be put in different bins. So manufacturers should always look for the best bin. And of course, if you have the best bin, what's happening? Well, you're paying more, right? The best binning means more money per component. And then you're going to try to get the best resistance, the best component that goes into that system, so that the LED works 100%, you know, and is producing at 100%. So when we buy high performing fixtures, meaning fixtures that are quality, all the LED are picked very, very carefully. Now the color is also very tightly controlled, so that when you put two fixtures side by side against, you see that they are the same color. What does that give us? Besides the fact that we have just, put some good component, what does that give us? Well, that gives us a very good smooth transition. Very, very, like you see the same color all over the place. And we have a very stable color experience. And when you have a red, you have a beautiful red everywhere. When you have a green, beautiful green. When you have a warm white, you have a beautiful warm white. When you have a cool white, you have a beautiful cool white. So over time, as the system is aging, the system always behave predictably. So that everybody getting old together. All the LEDs are like, you know, working together. There's not one that or two that are going out of whack. They're all, very predictable. So that's as far that's what a good manufacturer will look at, and that's why they want to have the best of the best LED. Again, that's the difference between a $300 fixtures or $1,000 fixtures and a $12 fixtures. As you can see, they both have LED, but the binning is not the same. The color stability won't be the same. The life won't be the same. So now let's talk about the second component of a system with LED. It's the driver. The driver is what regulates the LED, gives the juice to the LED to operate. It's that a little box or a printed board or part of a circuit that gives the electricity, the right electricity, to the LED to perform. So what does that do, right? So now we have a good LED, and we have a not so good driver. Let's say, what's going to happen? Well, uh, the results are not going to be that good. So we want to make sure that the quality of the driver is as good as our LED. And so why? Because this driver will help define how lights respond to dimming, or in our case, to tuning. How light will go up to 27 to 4,000 degree, or down to 2,700 degree. So not only that we need to make sure that we have amazing LED, but we need to have the driver that goes with it. And of course, all of this needs to be well engineered, right? Our driver needs to provide a stable current. Our dimming system, you know, is smooth and precise, and this support accurate tuning through the day. So we don't see like we're not we just everything's happening at a gradient scale, and it's shifting, and we're doing what we have to do. Our eyes is captating all this beautiful, you know, color that's important for that time of the day. And our circadian system get constant and consistent information. Wow. So basically, as you can see, two components are very, very critical in our operation and our delivery. We are dependent of these two components like there's no tomorrow. So the third thing when you're a manufacturer to think about, and we talked about this a little earlier, but I just want to bring it into the context uh, of circadian lighting, is that heat is a natural part of the LED operation. So any LED that operates, and especially when we're going to have him operate at very high level, and then lower level, high level, low level, we're going to need to have a very good heat management. And heat management is part of the fixtures. It's not by turning your AC at 65 that you're going to keep the temperature of your LED cool. The natural the natural way of dissipating the heat from the LED needs to be attached to something that helps it diffuse it, helps it get rid of it, so that we it doesn't affect the life of the LED. Now, all of this is not your problem, but understanding how it works helps you when you see a fixtures to be able to evaluate the quality of it. And sometimes it's hard because some things are in boxes or it's hidden or but by the weight you can also realize that if you have a big LED this big and and you have a fixture that is this big and weight some feather, you can probably understand and compare it to another fixture that would be more heavy because they have the appropriate heat management. And that's what I recommend all the time. Don't just get a sample of the fixtures that somebody wants to sell you. Get a fixtures that has been specified so you can refer to and you can compare it to. Because one by itself, even if it's light, if it's whatever, it's very hard to evaluate. But when you see one is made in very, good alloy, it's heavy, it's got some good paint, it's got some good finish, it's very convincing that you're getting ripped off, right? Because they can say, well, we'll take you $2 off. And you're like, well, this is just in weight. Seems like more than $2, right? And then you realize that the fixtures that they show you was in fact something that was available on Amazon, and they made 300% markup on it because you couldn't compare it with the appropriate fixtures. So a high quality fixtures, have a very good dissipation for help, for not for help but for heat, because it maintains it maintains a stable operation, so that the fixtures always operate at the same thing. It's funny because recently I'm working on a new collection of lighting fixture. I print them with my 3D printer, and we were doing some tests, and I let it plug for probably a week just to see, like to do the temperature and see how it was reacting. It was super warm, and then my buddy took it out and came and cleaned up the office, and then took the fixture and unplugged it. And I said, don't unplug it. I want to see what's going on. I want to see it age. I want to see it work. I want to see, just leave it there, right? And not that I consider myself a manufacturer, but my standard of testings are way above anybody else. Not way above anybody else, but are very high. Because I like to see all the problems before I send it to production. And also that's how I was trained. So when we want to make sure that our fixtures are gonna perform, well, guess what? Yesterday I started to introduce you on the topic of power over Ethernet. And this is what I want to start talking about a little bit and introduce into this concept, because now that we have solid state system controlling and we have low voltage, we are eliminating some part of the fixtures that are not very useful. We're eliminating hardware. We're eliminating costs. We're eliminating, point of source, because every time you had a component on the line, the weakest point is the one that's going to pop. And when it pops, what's happening? Well, guess what? This is the weakest point. So it could be a connection, it could be a plug, it could be a component, it could be a transistor, it could be whatever. So what you want to make sure is that you have the less distraction between the source and the output, right? The power to the light. So that when you're troubleshooting, you know very fast which component is failing, and then you can replace it very fast and correct your further production. So power over Ethernet control brings a lot of information over that little cable. It's normally it's a Cat6, and it combines power, combines data, and it combines control. So now we can have these intelligent fixtures that are switching data back and forth. So by having this available, now we can find out if the fixture is overheating, if the fixture is about to fail, if some of the components on the fixture are not working properly, etc., etc. And then we can also have it controlled to do our circadian lighting cycle. So the power over Ethernet is very useful, because now we don't just have this to one fixtures that connect to 10 fixtures. No, we have 10 wires going to 10 fixtures, and we have all the data on all the fixtures all the time. So what does that do? Of course, we have a more precise control. We can do a real-time adjustment. We have integrated intelligence. So it simplifies the architectures a lot, because now we don't need to go on a ladder to take the temperature of our operating board. We know, right? So PoE and circadian, I think, are making a very good match. Let's talk about the performance over time. And as you know, circadian lighting, although we've been talking about it for a long time, we don't have a very, very long trail of data. So we want to make sure that the fixtures and the technology we're using, it's stable, and it's safe, and it's well done. Why? Because it's gonna age at, and when we let's just look at the two scenarios. If you have a restaurant and you're using your system every day at full capacity, meaning full capacity is from let's say 11 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, you're gonna be wearing out your component way faster than if you have a house, and let's say the total time that you spend in the house a day is active time would be 6 to 8 hours, or even 6 hours a day. It's totally different, right? You have two different usage. So the component and the system must be designed accordingly. And also you gotta make sure that they're performing the same. Are they gonna use the same product? Definitely not. But they have the same functions. What we want is we want a system that remains stable. We want a system that is constant. That's not gonna fail after a few months. We want it months after months, year after year. We want the stability, to make sure that we have the right component, the right engineering, and the right manufacturer that supplies the product, and that also that those manufacturers are responsible for their product. I just mentioned something about the residential, and although I think personally that circadian lighting can be installed, and that's what I'm rolling out right now. I'm doing some pilots on lower end, but most of my work is high-end residential, and all the lighting I do is tailored to clients. So it is very easy to not convince, but to educate my client and tell them the benefits of it, and they understand. And at this point, the variation in the budget doesn't even affect them, right? But on the lower hand, it's 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 still in progress. I mean, we have all kinds of component, and I was watching this. I was making some research this week, and I was looking on different website for information for product. And yes, you can have probably a circadian system for under $500. So if you, but you know, it's going to do what it's going to do. But fine, at least you have something you can start. And if you have major chronic problem, probably you can, start addressing and start, you know, uh, beneficiating from circadian lighting right away. You don't need to wait till, you know, you have your own custom home. So obviously, when we do high end uh, residential, we select the appropriate technology, we integrate the control, we commission the system, and the result is just like a beautiful, cohesive lighting experience. Um, I'm doing a couple of house right now, and it's a brand new education for contractors. One of them I'm doing for a contractor, and they're very collaborative. And they said, Bob, we want the best. So there's not much you can say in that time. And they put the resource available, and the people and the team and everybody's behind. So it is easier than when I receive a phone call, and then the client tells me, well, the drywall guy wants more because now we got to integrate these fixtures, and he never did this, and blah 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 blah. So it is always, there will always be a challenge, because this is not just a plug and play system. It's a custom made system. We got to change some old paradigm that these contractor have, especially subcontractor, drywall, carpenter, cabinet maker. Well, I never did this before. Okay, I understand. I'll teach you. Now they cannot say anything, right? And then when you start making mock-ups, because that's what I do, I go to the saw, cut a couple pieces of wood, put it there like that, and this is how we're gonna make the trim. Then they look at me like I'm an alien. But they understand that, you know, this is a new game. It's not, they never did this before. And also, that's what they're getting paid for. So they just do what they have to do. So now, as an executive, how do we make sure that um, how do we make sure that this fits in our growth, right? Well, there's as project grow, as you get more project, you have to become more selective. And one of my contractor was letting me that know. He said, Bob, we have so many things to talk about, and I know that it's important that we talk about circadian lighting at the beginning, because now I can see the impact on the overall construction in my house. But we have so many things. How can we accelerate the process? So, and that's where the idea came from, putting these TV show, because I realized that if I don't, when I try to find educational material, I don't want to buy 26 report. Not that I'm cheap, but I just don't know if I need them. And the other thing is that I'm going to read these reports. I'm going to be confused because I'm not a scientist and I don't know all the vocabulary of scientists. And then the first thing you'll know is I'll fall asleep, and then I won't be able to explain what I won't understand what I read. So for me, when I start thinking about that, I told, and what my client was saying, and I said, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of show, and I'm going to help people to learn for themselves so that they can experience it for themselves. They can go out, get a kit, try it, and then also if they're building a house, they can at least learn the nomenclature. They can hire me. They have resource, and that's the whole purpose. And if they have an architect that's already on the project, that's already sensitive with this type of technology, then I'll work with them. I'll give them the data. They can look at these past episodes of the show, or they can go on my website, or so there's no way that we can go aside and miss something, because like I said, I spent 3 weeks building the show, and make it like I was explaining it to my grandmother. And that's been a stable datum in my life. When I think about that, it's very, very simple. I bring it to the simplest, you know person, so that yes, I can have some very advanced dialogue with my peers, but I cannot have an advanced dialogue with one of my clients, because first of all, they're not lighting expert. That's why they pay me. And that's why also when they pay me, they expect that I will bring them the best. So yes, I'll be their advocate. I'll go in up front, and you know I'll debate, and I fight like there's no tomorrow, because I just want to make sure that my client has the best. Wow, what a show. Um, so yeah, so manufacturers are the critical part, because they're the one, as we talked earlier, they're the one that are gonna honor your warranty. They're the one who's gonna make sure that your products are reliable, and also, you know, they they want to make sure that the result they promise happens. They want to make sure that the electrician install it correctly. They want to make sure that everything that's needed for the experience to be there is there. So that's it. That's it for today. And tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about the design. We're going to dive deeper on design. And yeah, so have a beautiful day.